Today at T-Mobile, I'm joined by a special co-anchor.
What up, everybody? It's your boy, Big Snoop Deal Double G.
Snoop, where can people go to find great deals?
Head to T-Mobile.com and get 4 iPhone 16s with Apple Intelligence on us, plus 4 lines for $25.
That's quite a deal, Snoop. And when you switch to T-Mobile, you can save versus the other big guys' comparable plans plus streaming.
Respect. We up out of here.
See how you can save on wireless and streaming versus the other big guys at T-Mobile.com/switch. Apple Intelligence requires iOS 18.1 or later.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Wonder-working power in the precious...
Incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria.
You may wish to adjust the dial. You're currently tuned into the wrong station.
Stay with me. Ilum's breath came rough through shredded lungs as the hub winged swift and useless toward home. Clade glanced back at the other 2 vehicles strung out behind them, each with its own bloody cargo. One of them carried a 17-year-old boy, Chan, his first summer in the Warrior Society. On the last one, now cold, now still at last, lay Sasha Lawson. Small lights dwindled on the hill behind. Breck was leading their reunited forces back, while Clade rode with the dying, doing whatever she could to keep Ilum stable until they reached help. Stay with me, hey? Stay with me, Ilum. But wherever the other woman was, it wasn't here. Ilum's eyes were wide and staring, reflecting the burnt stars. Her heart still beat, but each pulse just forced more life out through the dark rents in her clothes. Stay with me, Ilum. But she knew the words were fruitless. After the medics ran her people into surgery, there was nothing else Clade could do, so she went and sat by her sister's bed in the westmost wing. The chair held her weariness. The machines pinged and muttered. Bessa was asleep. Bessa mostly slept these days. She was small and frail, and there was nothing Clade could do to protect her, because there was no real enemy. Now she had another small, frail woman in the morgue, and yet another woman Clade had failed to protect was bleeding on a steel table. I think I really fucked up tonight, Bess. But her sister didn't answer, and as Clade drew breath to say more, a soft hand fell on her shoulder. She nearly jumped out of her skin. But it was only Scanianza, looking down at her with kindly eyes and offering a cup of coffee. Not real coffee, of course. It wasn't Christmas. How are you, Clade? The old woman had moved quietly, Clade wasn't sure if she'd overheard her little confession. Tired. She cleared her throat. Any news about Ilum? Chian? No. They'll both be in surgery in another couple hours. The others? Cuts and scrapes. One of Breck's people got a broken arm, but can walk. Breck's just pinged at a comm tower. With any luck, they'll be back by end of watch. She tried not to let her worry show. Saganianza pulled over a small chair from the corner of the room and perched on it like a bird. They sat a few moments in companionable silence as Clade sipped her bitter drink. A few cold needles of drizzle picked at the window. How do you feel about how things went tonight? Clade sighed. Well, you have to take risks in war. Saganianza tilted her head, waiting for Clade to say more. But when the big woman kept quiet, Saganianza let out a little sigh and folded one arm over the other. It won't surprise you to hear committee's unhappy, Clade. Well, we'll see how they feel when I bring the monster in. You should know, Ecos called for a hearing. Clade drained the coffee and ran one big hand across her face. I'm not worried about a hearing. I'll let my actions speak for me. After Saganianza took her quiet leave, Clade drank another cup of almost coffee, then kissed Bessa on her sleeping brow. She put her hands in her pockets and stumped down through darkened hospital wings toward the morgue. She hated this building. She hated second watch, the worst 27 hours of the day, when the darkest thoughts came in. Outside the morgue, she sat for about 20 minutes, worrying. She didn't think the atavism would attack a large, armed group, but in the darkness of the morgue at second watch, it was impossible for her to not imagine her warrior society routing through the darkness, chased down one by one. By the time Yarmuk came to meet her in his stained smock, she was almost happy to see him.
Just be glad I'm not here about your friend, eh?
He meant Ilum. He was a heavy man with a hoarse voice, a born joker. Sasha was my friend too, Yarmuk. The examiner shrugged and grimaced, mimed zipping his mouth and breaking off the pull. He wasn't blessed with a lot of empathy. The morgue was a good place for his talents.
No jokes, no jokes,
he chortled, leading her through into the cold room, where Sasha lay veiled on a slab.
Bloody mess, though, this. Very bloody mess.
His sigh seemed not quite genuine.
You get the thing that did this, Clade?
No. Clade's eyes were fixed on the white sheet. We shot it, but it didn't die. Well, not that we saw, anyway. We'll bring it down tomorrow.
Well, I heard what it did to Ilum, so don't go creating too much work for me, eh? I'm the one guy you want to be lazy, right? Anyway, let's take a look at this poor girl.
He drew the sheet down, revealing first the lovely face turned pale, and then the horrid wounds of her torso. They looked blue, artificial under the cold lights.
Nothing too unexpected from an animal attack. Claws, teeth. Not many defensive wounds. The shock must have got her fast. Now, the only interesting thing is this.
He touched two gloved fingers to a set of wounds on Sasha's belly. Clade knew what had caused them. They'd been left by what had looked like fleshy, black-downed roots. In her confused memories of muzzle flash and darkness, she thought they'd come muscular, umbilical, from the creature's belly. The wounds were ringed by pinpricks, like those left on a fish by lamprey teeth, but the central incisions were deep, intimate.
Can you guess what it was digging for?
Blood?
No, not blood.
Yarmuk chuckled.
These,
he stuck his fingers in, making Clade wince,
leading to the pancreas.
Which means?
Well, that's what I asked myself, so I gave Malio a call. She's still awake, eh? Everyone is tonight. Her guess is smart money's insulin.
Insulin?
That's right. Or insulin-producing cells. A lot of atavisms aren't very well assembled. Or they were, but they were assembled with deliberate flaws. I don't know why. Control, built-in obsolescence, even fun. Seems needlessly cruel to me. Not how I would build a monster.
You're saying the atavism's, what, diabetic?
Yes. It's probably built to kill, so maybe the idea was to give the creature an extra need. It's likely tormented by constant surges of hunger and intense thirst. Almost makes you pity the poor guy.
Pity? She looked down at Sasha. You look at her, and you pity it? Yarmuk looked at Sasha, as if considering her for the first time as a person, not some lump of broken clay. At last he took a breath.
Well, I deal with a lot of bodies.
After leaving the hospital, Clade trudged out through the thin rain and waited in the thin gold glow of the gate. End of second watch came and went. Clade waited, pacing a hole in the turf, slowly losing her mind with worry. It was almost an hour later when her warrior society returned. Some of them, anyway, with Gorn at the front. Where's Breck? Where's the rest? Coming up behind. Gorin was pale, damp. We got spread out in the dark. The bear was stalking us, so Breck took a few teams to cover our retreat. Where are they now? They should be right behind us, but we fell out of contact. Clade just stood there for a moment, expressionless and mute. How many people was she going to lose tonight? But she forced herself to hide her feelings. All right, tell your people to stay put. We're going to wait here until the rest get back. If that takes more than 30 minutes, we're going back out after them. Back into the dark? Gorin's eyes stared in the gloom. That's right. Despite fear and exhaustion, they did as she ordered them to. They were her warrior society, and Clade had cultivated loyalty. Under the gold half-shadow of the fence, they drank cold coffee and ate cold rations and waited in the sleet. Everyone was drained. Many of them fell asleep in the grass or against the walls of an old warehouse. Clade let them. They needed it. She had eyes on the road. 25 minutes passed. Her eyelids were heavy, but she kicked herself awake. Then, just as she was about to rouse Gorin's team and lead them back out, her earpiece crackled. Clade! Come in, Clade! She could barely hear him. He must have been at the furthest reach of the short-range comms. Breck, do you copy? Yes, sir. We're inbound. Just a few minutes out. Sorry, we got delayed on the road. The bear led us on a little chase. I think we landed a few more shots, though. At least Ara thinks she scored one. We'll see when we bring it down next watch. They continued to chatter over comms, each comforted by the sound of the other's voice, but neither willing to admit it. Finally, the red glimmer of Breck's torches appeared out in the trees. Breck, I can see your lights now. Welcome home. She didn't say how worried she'd been. She waited outside the fence with her Zed drawn until the last of her people were inside, safe. She was the last one through before the gate flicked shut, and the golden haze divided them from the outer dark. She almost collapsed with relief. Safe. All safe. There'd be no more deaths that night. Head home, she told them. Get some rest. We head back out in 9 hours. They went, gratefully. And none of them, none, even thinking back years later on that night, had any idea how or when the bear had gotten in through that open gate. The call woke her 5 hours later. Breck. He sounded worn right down to the bone. Clayt, we have a big problem. She sat upright, nearly hitting her head on the low shelf above her bed. Tell me it's not inside the fence, Breck. She meant the bear. It was a wild guess, but all great fears hold some kernel of inevitability. It's inside the fence, Clayt. Call just came in. Clayt. He trailed off. She was already throwing clothes on, with the phone held between her jaw and shoulder and her mind spinning wild. Where would it go? Where were the most people most vulnerable, most easily taken? The answer loomed, sickening, unavoidable. Jesus Christ, Breck. The hospital. Commune's hospital was a concrete slab nestled among butternut trees. Its windows were dark with third watch. Daylight was still a long way off. By the time Clayt arrived, Warrior Society was already gathered outside in the cold. Committee was gathering too. Are you happy? Gashra, the committee speaker, was waiting for Clayt in the half-glow of the streetlights. She looked gray as death, maybe more than 40 hours since she'd slept. 2 comrades nearly dead, and how many more in danger now? Clayt walked past her with shoulders hunched. I'm not happy at all, Gashra. But maybe now you can see why I thought this thing was so dangerous, why it always had to die. Gashra made a noise of disbelief. Do you hear yourself? But Clayt didn't turn back. She was looking up for light in the window on the westmost wing. Her heart was pounding and her jaw was tight. Do I have your permission to kill at this time? She didn't look back at the committee. She could feel their eyes burning into her from behind, their hatred warm as a floodlight. But they needed her now. Not even Armin or Homalayo said anything. Skanianza sat alone on a concrete bollard at the edge of the group, wrapped in her woolen shawl. Try and put an end to it quickly, said Gashra at last. And limit the damage if you can. I'll do my best. Then Clayt raised her voice, speaking directly to the Warrior Society. She could feel them behind her, the potential energy of their Zeds and knives. They were tired, but determined, pale, but steady. What about the rest of you? You ready to help me kill this thing? We're with you, Clayt, said Goran. He was tired as the rest, but there was a new sternness in his voice. We're with you, Clayt. The others echoed. We're with you, sir, said Breck. She nodded, and saying nothing further, she marched toward the hospital with a phalanx behind her. As the troops passed, committee traded dark looks amongst themselves, and Saganianza rose to murmur with Armin and Omalayo near the back. The plan was simple. Contain the exits, then lead a hand-picked team to the front. Clear the first floor room by room, control the stairs with reinforcements, and clear the basement next. Try not to think about Bessa helpless on the 3rd floor. Go slow and thorough. Try not to think about how many people she'd gotten killed tonight. Work up to the building room by room, stair by stair, floor by floor, until they had the atavism trapped somewhere under bright blue lights. Gun it down. Try not to think about Bessa. Are we ready? Clayt asked. Her hand-picked fighters nodded. Permission to take point, sir. Granted, Breck. And he kicked open the hospital doors. Inside, everything was quiet. The halls all dim. Commune ran on power-saving mode during the long nights. Locked doors, Clayt considered clear. Locked doors meant people hiding in closets or sitting with their eyes screwed shut and their backs against the door, praying to be spared. Let them pray a while longer. It was safer where they were until the bear was dead. They cleared the 1st floor. Reinforcements flooded in to hold the stairs as Clayt and Breck led their fire teams by slow and winding footsteps into the dim and chlorine-scented warrens of the basement. Surely that's where the atavism would hide. Somewhere dark, somewhere deep, somewhere like whatever cryptid had slept inside these many thousand years before it was woken by, what? The expiration of some clock, some power cell? Suddenly, someone was hammering at the window of the locked morgue doors. Clayt nearly had a heart attack, that it was only Yarmuk.
Is it safe yet?
She shook her head, and he disappeared. Furniture groaned on the other side of the door as he pushed it against some barricade.
Then you can't come in!
She ignored him and pushed on. Room after room, hall after hall. Nothing. Nothing in the winding corridors, and nothing in the chemical closets, and nothing in the softly whirring laundry rooms. Each time they kicked a door, Clade expected the atavism to erupt out at them, a black void filled with teeth and black stars. But each time, nothing. Breck kicked in a final washroom stall. Clear. And he said it with horrible finality, because it meant the whole basement level was clear, which meant the odds were now 1 in 2 that the monster was on Bess's floor. All right. Clade kept her voice steady. The second floor. They climbed tight-lipped up the wide terrazzo stairs. At the second floor main corridor, they found an orderly smashed open against the wall. Clade must have known him, but he was unrecognizable, his face wrecked, his scrub shredded and black with blood. Twin punctures slowly leaked from his belly. Insulin. The smell, which lingered on the air, was choking. Cat urine, canine anal glands. Long streaks of the atavism's piss pooled dark along the floor. Clade grunted and splashed forward. She cleared the first room. Nothing. Then the second, then the third, and nothing still. How long did it take to clear a floor? 60 minutes? 80? But no monster waited for them in the darkness of the empty hospital rooms. Only black windows on the lightless night, and now and then the body of another destroyed person. And long before they cleared the second floor, Clade knew they wouldn't find the atavism on this level. Long before she kicked the final stall, she knew the worst was true, that her sister was trapped on the same floor as the bear. Her heart beat strangely slow as they climbed the final stair. Now the reek of spoor was overwhelming. Fresh urine oozed down the steps in putrid rivulets. A spray of scat spattered the walls of the landing, still moist, still flecked with shards of pure white bone. She hesitated at the top, with her troops behind her. Then something inside her broke. She couldn't hold back any longer. Dead or alive, she had to know, and throwing doctrine to the wind, and ignoring Breck's shout in the darkened corners, and the dim yawning of the hallways, she charged forward, gunning as fast as she could for Bess's room. Down corridor and dim-lit corridor, past empty rooms and the bodies of patients sprawled among the blackened sheets, and down toward that furthest western wing. All the while that smell of urine burned inside her sinuses, and all the while the Zed hung heavy in her sweaty palms, and all the while its muzzle trembled with her adrenaline. She rounded a corner and found the tableau waiting. Bess's door waited open at the end of the hall, and the room's ceilings were bathed red in the low glow of her lamp. Small blue flowers rippled on her drawn curtains, and she was lying in soft sheets, asleep, with her pale face turned calmly toward the sky. A great darkness hung above her. The atavism, bare, its blackest pelt and heavy claws and black starred eyes. It bent over her, watching her sleep with almost a tenderness, as two black tendrils gently pumped, joining its dark abdomen to hers. No. The word choked itself in Clade's throat, but the bear heard, and at the unexpected noise it raised its mighty head, and the starred eyes fixed themselves on her, and the low rumble of its chest seemed to come from the walls themselves. Let her go. But the words came from her more as a plea than a command. She had the Z-gun raised, but couldn't keep it steady in her grip. The atavism slowly turned its body toward her. Its weight shifted. The tendrils released with a gentle pop. Then Bess's eyelids flickered. Her smile was gentle when she saw her sister down the hall. "Clade." The voice was soft, but clear in the perfect quiet. "I wish you hadn't come." Then Clade pulled the trigger. The bear surged forward, and a shriek of golden light heated the air. Time slowed. The beam ripped through one of the atavism's legs, and it crashed down on top of Bessa, its huge weight crushing her body. But as the weapon dropped from Clade's numb hands, the bear recovered and boiled forward like a fumarole, its utter black fur absorbing so much light it barely seemed to have a shape. She just stood. It was coming toward her, totally unreal. Then strong hands pulled her back, weapons screamed, beams of gold ripped through black fur and slabby flesh, and the creature roared, but did not stop, and Breck stepped forward, still firing as he put his body between the bear and Clade, still firing as black claws smashed him open to the air. Then the Warrior Society were running, dragging Clade alongside as the atavism barreled down after them. One man trampled, Goran's eyes bulging as the black teeth ripped into his neck, and the sound of screaming and of guns, and the dim blur of fluorescence and the bright blur of beams, and the hard smell of blood and ozone and animal spoor. And then one human figure was walking calmly in the direction everyone else was running from. An old woman in a woolen shawl, and in her arms a bronze tripod crowned with topaz crystal. And as the bear fell toward her with its black starred eyes and black throat wide and black fangs running slick with clotted gore, she set down the tripod and put a hand to her earpiece and very calmly muttered, "Now." The bear struck a skein of golden light full force, as if it were a wall of steel. Sganyanza didn't flinch, not even when the bear howled and charged the barrier again, and the light bulbs flickered from the power drain. "Armin," she told her earpiece, "it's all fenced in." "Yes," she replied after a moment. "Yes, it was very, very close." After a while, when the rest of the committee had affairs in hand, Sganyanza reappeared with a cup of coffee, dragging an old wire-framed chair behind her. "Mind if I join you?" She pulled the seat up close to where Clade sat slumped against the hospital wall. They were not far from the topaz stand and haze of gold, not far from the prowling, fulminated darkness of the bear, or from the broken bodies of Goran, Breck, and Bessa. "Coffee?" Sganyanza offered an old chipped cup. It was real coffee this time, with plenty of soy and sugar, and Clade accepted, even though she usually took hers black. "I have some ginger cookies somewhere, too." The old woman rooted through her pockets with a crackle of brown paper. "Was it all my fault?" Clade could barely speak. The old woman just smiled sadly and said nothing, but she put a hand on the big woman's shoulder. Clade covered her face for a long time. "You know, regret can be useful." Sganyanza spoke as if idly, off-topic, but only an intelligent regret. Hair-pulling, rending clothes. Doesn't help anyone at all. Clade shrank. "Take comfort in this." Sganyanza finally fished out a battered bag with 2.5 ginger snaps. "From time to time, a threat shows up with the power to break our little commune. Oh, we may think we have things figured out, but we're as prone to humanness as the people who made that." She pushed her chin toward the atavism. "It's worth remembering, I think, that we're the ones who made those weapons. People just like us. Just like the people living here." She pushed creakily to her feet and handed the bag of cookies down to Clade. "But here's the comforting thing. As long as we all hold together, As long as we keep choosing to be the commune, it doesn't matter what kind of threat shows up. We can face it together, as the commune. She gave Clade's shoulder a final squeeze, and then slowly made her way back down the hole. What do we do when another threat shows up? Clade called after her. What do we do when there's another bear? Siganyonza half turned. She held her hands out wide. "Oh, Clade," she said. "I wasn't talking about the bear." The Wrong Station is made possible with the generous support of our listeners on Patreon. Visit today at patreon.com/thewrongstation. You can also support us by leaving a rating and review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever it is you tune into the show. This week's episode, Existential Threat, Part 2, was written by Alexander Saxton and performed by Anthony Botello. Thank you to Nick Fisher, Marissa Perez, Harlequin Rabbit, and Morgan McAllister for helping us keep the lights, well, off. The Wrong Station is co-produced by Alexander Saxton, Anthony Botello, and Jacob Duarte Spiel, with music composed and performed by Alon Citron and arranged for the viola and performed by Viola Schmidt. You can follow The Wrong Station on social media @The Wrong Station and email us at thewrongstation@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for listening.